What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. We are continuing our top 5 senior positions here in Colorado series. But this time we're talking about running backs, the best running backs in the class of 2024 here in Colorado. And, running back in general, like not just on the high school or college level, but the pros as well. It's definitely a interesting time to be a running back, and there's a bunch of different views on how running backs are seen, and I think that's really reflected not only in college football recruiting, but in how we evaluate players as well. And so just to go over how we do this thing and how we go ahead and evaluate and decide who's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this series. How it goes down is that myself and Kodey, we have the same rubric, but we grade individually. And, there's different interpretations for each category. And there's 10 categories. I'll go ahead and list them off. We have vision, footwork, receiving, so just general wide receiver skills. Power/explosiveness is one. Agility/change of direction is one. Then we have speed. Balance/body control is one. Frame/strength, that's put together. And then we have tackle breaking and acceleration. And so we give players a grade anywhere between 1 and 10. Basically, I'm just going to break this down here. Anything from like 6 to 8 is about average. As you approach that 8 grade there, you get closer to a 3-star, a low 3-star that is. And then 8 to 9 is pretty good, so that's that 3-star to 4-star range. About 8.5 is kind of where your higher 3-star, I would say, to a solid 3-star or mid 3-star. And then after 8.7 to 9, that's about your 4-star range in that category/skill. And then 9 and above, that's 4-star to 5-star. And so we basically add up the grades for each category, and then we get our individual grade and individual evaluation for each and every running back here. And then after that, after myself and Kodey have individually evaluated these backs, we go ahead and we average it out. We add them together, divided by 2, and then, the top PMC average graded running backs, that goes number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accordingly there. So our overall grades are based on the PMC grade here. Our overall rankings are based on the PMC grade here, just so that is clear. But, I'm just going to say it again, myself and Kodey, we definitely interpret some categories and scouting differently, just like scouts on the next level do, and how people in general do. And, we do our best, And to add on to that, we've also graded out the top running backs in this class, and Taylor Tatum and Kendra Young here, just to get a good baseline for kind of, I guess, where we're at as far as grading goes. So that helps us out. Helps us not only compare these running backs to each other in the state, but to national talent, the best around the country. And so that's kind of our process there. Like I said, a lot of nuance here. But Kodey, is there anything else I missed? Anything else you want to add on here before we get it on and get to our number 5 guy?
Yeah, I just want to add on that running back is by far the most subjective position, I'd say, on the field. And, the value of a running back can hinge entirely on a scheme, maybe even more than any other position, on what you need out of your running back. And then, in the NFL, we see a ton of running back by committees kind of come and go here and there. And then, kind of that, well, what about a 3-down back, which is, what I value. And I think that something that's kind of interesting about this, and something that I think definitely plays into it, is the football around us as we were growing up, Simon. I think that, obviously with you being exposed to that Texas high school football and seeing those studs and what a great Texas running back looks like. And then, Colorado, we've produced some solid backs. Obviously, guys like Max Borghi comes to mind. But I definitely think that for my the biggest influencer as far as high school players go from Colorado has got to be Christian McCaffrey. And so I think that makes some categories, like a receiving category, weigh a little extra heavy on my grades and whatnot here compared to yours. And then obviously things that you've seen is, I think obviously the way that we evaluate every single position is going to be influenced by that, by our upbringing. But I definitely think that it shows the most at least in our scouting at the running back position. So I just thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, and I think we haven't talked about this off air yet, but you definitely make a good point. I mean, the running backs I grew up around, someone who was my personal mentor and somebody that I always looked up to growing up was Rex Burkhead. Great running back for Nebraska, had a really long NFL career for back over 10 years, I think, which is really rare nowadays. But he is definitely more of a power back, even played a little bit of fullback on the pro level there. And, just looking at his workouts and how he ran, that's how I wanted to run, right? That's how everyone up in Texas wanted to run. You wanted to be somebody to be feared. And, even to go back a little bit farther, like a lot farther, the Adrian Petersons, LTs of the world, guys who were good power backs, as well as balance and speed, of course. But, at the end of the day, there are guys that you're not going to be able to tackle like that. Those are guys that definitely had influence as well. As far as receivers go, that's definitely the future. But, there's nothing wrong with having a back that could set the tone, right? And so, with that being said, Kodey, if you don't have anything more to add, do you mind if I talk about our number 5 guy here in the state of Colorado in this class of 2024?
I believe that this is your neck of the woods to take point.
It definitely is. Speaking of power backs, the number 5 class of 2024 running back in Colorado is Fountain Fort Carson's Matthias Price, the big 6'2", 220-pound running back. This is a guy that I got to watch a pretty solid amount his senior year, this last season. He broke out his junior year, and I didn't get to watch as much, unfortunately, but his senior year, I got to watch him against Pine Creek, and then got to watch him tear up Fairview in a crazy game. A lot of respect for him there. But let me talk about what makes him great here, what I really liked. Starting with my highest grades here, I gave him a 9 for frame and strength and an 8.8 in power and explosiveness there. He's a big dude. He's definitely a big dude. I gave him more so a 9, I should say this, in frame and strength, because I like the frame a lot. 6'2", 220, while still being able to run, like he's not slow by any means, but still being able to run really well and look good out there at 6'2", 220. That's big time. I think that is the definition of a Power 5 frame right there with room to grow. There's definitely a universe where he could grow. And I don't know, maybe not put on that much more weight, but he could put on another 15 and be running around at 6'2", 235 and be an absolute beast of a guy out there. And so I absolutely love seeing that. I also gave him an 8.8 in power and explosiveness. I think when he gains speed, he's really tough to bring down. When he has a little bit of a runway, there's a lot of plays where they go ahead and run it out of eye, and he's able to gain some speed there. He's tough to meet at the point of contact, and you see it when looking at his film and looking at his game from just a red zone perspective and just looking at red zone plays that he's been in. He's pretty unstoppable. He's somebody that, could reach over. He's long enough to do it, but definitely has some good power behind those pads when he gets low, and I will say this. Well, here, I don't want to jump around too much. I'll get to my lower grades here in a minute. Before I move on here, I also gave him an 8.6 for speed. That is his 3rd highest grade here. He's a longer guy, right? And so when you have taller dudes and they're running, they naturally look a little bit slower, right? Because they're not moving their legs as fast because it's a little bit more effortless there. And, I've seen plenty of tall running backs go do their thing and whatnot, and I'm kind of used to it. I think at this point, I feel like I give taller running backs more of a pass when it comes to top end speed. But I'll tell you what, when Matthias Price, he gets outside or he sees a lane and it's just down to a foot race, he's gonna win. The number of times this dude broke it outside against Fairview and just absolutely burnt a defense that's not slow by any means. They got some good speed over there. Was insane. Like I said, give him a runway and he's taking off. Right? He's taking flight and he's out of there. So it's like watching an Olympic sprinter almost in terms of, height and stride length and whatnot when he gets into open space. And so when he gets into that open space, he's pretty tough to track down. It really just becomes a race at that point. And like I said, great running form, and I think that really helps out his speed. I gave him an 8.6 here. Was not able to find a 40-yard dash or even a 100-meter dash, because I know a lot of these guys did track, and so I really use that in consideration when, I guess, evaluating their speed. But I was able to find a 110-meter hurdle time, and he ran a 15.67. I think that's his best last year, as in 2022, the spring of 2022. And that's pretty solid for somebody his size and weight. That's pretty solid, and it really translates to the football field. So absolutely love seeing that. Now, I don't want to take up everything, Kodey, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it to you. What are some things you really liked about Matthias Price, and what do you think about my evaluation about some of his upside and the things I really liked about his game?
Well, I just want to bring up that it's a great point that, a taller running back he doesn't look like he's running that fast, but he really is. And I want to just say that his top end speed was one of my best assets. You look at his film and the length of the field, by the way, he outruns, like you said, the Fairview defense. He outran the Columbine defense. He outran the Regis defense on a 90-plus yard touchdown. And they have some pretty quick guys in that secondary and whatnot, and they can't even take the right angles just because stride for stride, step for step, he's that much faster. So his speed is actually one of his highest grades for me at an 8.7. I also got to reflect that his frame/strength is also really high for me. I had it at a 9.2. I mean, the fact that he's already 6'2", 220, that's the closest to college playing weight out of any of these guys, honestly. And he wears it really, really well. And I think there's still, like you said, a little bit of room to grow as well, whether that's another 5 pounds and maybe even another 10 pounds in there. So, and in addition to that, he also outran a Legend defense that was pretty good against the run all season. So I just wanted to throw all of those out there as fast defenses that he was able to outpace. So, and then, I will say that his ability to kick into gear is legit. His power/explosiveness was an 8.5 for me, and that was the same score as his balance/body control here. I think that, he was able to pull off some spectacular maneuvers with that control of his body. And, something else that I kind of thought about is, and maybe this isn't the best way to approach it, but he is pretty good at remaining balanced and in control despite the height that he's running at. So, I think that that's something that definitely came into consideration. And, his ability to weave through the middle is nothing short of spectacular. I think that, even sometimes it feels like he's not running full speed. He still just outpaces the entire defense. But, I think that he can still finish some runs a little bit better. And as far as some things that I want to see improve here, and we have a little bit of overlap here, his agility/change of direction. Look, he can move, but I think that he loses a lot of capabilities because of his pad level. I have his agility/change of direction at a 7.9, which is not the worst, And then I also have his footwork at a 7.9 as well. And I think it is because he is just running straight up and down. And I'm going to take the time to talk about that to also address, his tackle breaking. I have it graded at an 8.2, which is fine. But the fact that it's the lowest score on the top 5, and he has 5 more pounds than the next heaviest guy, and then 10 more pounds on the next guy, and, the fact that he has lower tackle breaking than somebody on this list who's 40 pounds lighter than him, that's kind of inexcusable, honestly. And, I'm going to give him some tough love here just because I really, really think that he needs to be in the chutes every single day when he gets on campus, and he needs to run significantly lower to really capitalize on his potential and to be, a true Division I back here on the FCS level. There's a little bit of a spoiler there, But all in all, you combine all these scores and his low receiving output. This is probably running back wise the worst receiving back class we've evaluated. And so that's just going to be something that kind of stunts a lot of these scores. But, his receiving out of 5, his vision's out of 8. I think that it's fine, but I do think that he definitely benefits from the lanes being wide open. And I don't know if he always runs to where the block will be or creates blocks with the way that he runs vision-wise. And then his acceleration I have as an 8.3. I think that he gets up to top speed pretty fast, but it's nothing like, you don't see it, that acceleration. You see him get to his top speed, if that makes sense. It's not like a snap, so to speak. And when you combine all those up, that is an 80.2 here. Coach V, thoughts on my strengths and my criticism? I mean, I kind of already know where you stand on it, but come on, we got to get this guy in the shoots, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I will say this. I kind of just don't think that is really his game, to be like a running back that could string together like 4 or 5 little finesse agility moves and just completely juke out a corner or something like that. I think he's definitely more of a one-cut blend with power back type of runner, so very north and south, right? Like if he's going to go north and south, make a cut, get up to speed, hit the hole, right? And whether he runs over somebody or outruns somebody, it is what it is there, but definitely more one cut. Like he's not going to dance around with anybody really. Now that doesn't mean he can't continue to improve on it. I think he should, but I just don't think that's really his game. And it reflects in my grades too. I'll just go down the line and say all my grades so that I could just talk about his game here. But I gave him an 8.3 for vision. Like I said, more so one cut. I don't think he's really trying to set up more blocks or looks than that. He's just really trying to find that, cut that lane, and then he's going to hit it hard. So there's that. I gave him an 8 for footwork. I do think that could still be cleaned up though. So there's that as well. I actually gave him a 7.2 for receiving. Didn't catch the ball a whole ton. I feel like he did in more his junior year than anything this year. It was very hey, let's just go north and south. Let's not get cute with it. And let's just feed him. And that's fine, but I know he could catch. Saw him on multiple screens. I could have swore I saw him at least on a couple of Texas routes there, over the middle. And honestly, if you line him up outside and just have him run, just get vertical and go 1-on-1. I mean, he's 6'2", 220 with good speed. He's probably going to get open. I have seen him bring in some of those deep balls before. So, but not as much this last year, I feel. So I gave him a 7.2 there. So there's that. And then, moving on, I already talked about power and explosiveness. Agility, change of direction, also gave him an 8, same as footwork. Balance, body control, gave him an 8.1. Here, let me see. Tackle breaking, 8.2. Acceleration, 8.2 here. You're right. He does run pretty upright. And I think if he runs with a much lower pad level, especially in short yardage situations and in the red zone, I don't think anybody's going to stop him, because when I rated him out at an 8.8 with power and explosiveness, I really do feel like he has the power to go behind those legs when he has the right leverage and whatnot. But I went ahead and docked him for balance and body control, not because, he gets arm tackled and is just super off balance all the time, but because he does run a little upright there. And when I'm looking at these short yardage situations, there were multiple times against Pine Creek where I'm trying to see him just get good pad level, and he just doesn't quite get low enough. And it's not because he's not powerful enough. It's just because he's not running low enough. I'd like to see him run lower, right? I don't think he's going to be a guy that's ever going to be a crazy, agile, Christian McCaffrey type or a Alvin Kamara type. Let's just be honest. He's more of a Derrick Henry, hey, you got to get those pads down and you got to make some dudes cry when you run. Straight up. You got to make some dudes cry because you're hitting them so hard. And so I'd like to see a little bit more of that, just because I feel like there are times where he's just not running low enough, and then he bounces outside, and he has a tendency to try to hit that outside lane, and he does have the speed to get there on this level, but on the next level, when you got to get 1 yard, the fastest way to a point is just straight, right? Ain't no going around or whatnot. You just got to run straight. A straight line is the fastest way to a point. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that. But, everything else, it is what it is. I think he has solid agility at an 8. It could still be improved. I mean, it could still improve to a level where you can maybe make a second or third cut after that first one. But other than that, I'd really just like to see him continue to be a good north-south runner, run with a good pad level and a consistent pad level. And then before we move on to outlook and his commitment here, I agree with the tackle breaking. I don't know. I think if he runs lower, that will be solved pretty easily there. And then with acceleration, I also agree. There is a reason why I said he needs a little bit of a runway, and they ran it out of I a good amount. It's not bad. It's fine. He's still getting a little bit of a running start there, but I do think he could definitely improve on that acceleration, just work on that explosiveness a little bit more, those first 10, 15 yards, getting into that good top-end speed, which I know he has, and I think that's definitely unlockable as long as he continues to work on opening up those hips, staying flexible there while gaining strength and whatnot as well. I think there's a lot of potential here when it comes to Matthias Price. And so, with that being said, first off, Kodey, what do you think about what I just said there? And then, from there, you could go ahead and take it to outlook.
Yeah, I would agree that one cut is the way he rolls. And, he's a very downhill guy, He just picks up momentum and speed like a boulder. And, I think that it's just, there's some flashes, right, of that athleticism, of that agility, he has a nice hurdle and finishes that run for a touchdown. He takes a couple of screens quite far. He has that Texas route. It's a all right body of, and there's instances of that strength also flashing, that frame / strength as far as his stiff arms, I think are pretty powerful. So I think that those are all valuable aspects to his game. And he does a good job at a lot of things, but man, I get it. You're 6'2", but some of these guys are running 4 inches lower than their height, or 5 or 6 inches, and they gain a lot of maneuverability that way, and they gain a lot of power. And at that 220 pounds, he does run into people, and he does run he falls forward, is what I should say. But he could run over people if he just brought it down a hair. So I don't disagree with any of that. But outlook, we already kind of mentioned that D1 level. And Matthias Price is going to be a Northern Colorado Bear in a running back room that experienced a lot of change. And, Matthias, I still think that he's a little bit further away from getting snaps. Just because, I think that Unko probably utilizes the transfer portal a little bit here, gets somebody maybe even as a stopgap here a little bit. But, Matthias, at the same time, I still feel like I could see him getting touches depending on how the year goes. I'm not going to lie. And, I think that it would be in a kind of limited role. They're not going to give him a 3-down back opportunity so soon. But, he's somebody who you could throw him out there and give him a stretch play and just see what he does with it. Or, give him one of those inside power plays and see what he does. Or, just let him work in looks that he's seen. Give him that opportunity to make that cut and go barreling towards somebody. And hopefully by this time next year at 225, at 230, and see what he can do, what he can cook with here. Coach V, look, the Unko running back room took some tough hits this past transfer season for sure. I'm mostly talking about Vaz, obviously, but what does that mean for Matthias, and what does it mean for Northern Colorado to get Price?
Yes, and Bryce Vaz was our number 1 running back a couple of years ago, so that definitely hurts. But I love it. This was a guy that I really would have loved to bring into UNC, and I feel like I've told you this before, Kodey, but I just wasn't sure what that running back room would look like with Vaz coming back and whatnot, or at the time I thought he was coming back, and Man, like, I look at Matthias Price and I'm like, man, there's so much potential there. Just give him a year or two, right? And he doesn't have to play. You don't have to log all these carries and whatnot. Because, I mean, if you want to play on the next level, arguably it's better that you don't, be a 3-down back anyways. And don't have to wear yourself all the way down, especially when you're a power back and you're taking on so much contact. Like, it's okay to wait a little bit before you play and really develop, right? And as far as upside goes, I love his upside the most out of anybody on this top 5 list. And, obviously I'm biased being a Northern Colorado alum and whatnot, but like seriously, 6'2", 220, great strides, good top end speed. There's a lot to work with here, and so I don't know if he plays right away. I think you're right. They're probably going to go transfer portal, try to get a guy that maybe has a little bit more juice, a little bit more like, agility, and could be more lightning to his thunder there, and I think that would be good. But also, it is a new offensive coordinator that UNC has brought in, and he was with this head coach back when they coached together at Southern Utah just a couple of years ago when they won the entire Big Sky a couple of times, and so I trust obviously his coaching, but I'm also not super familiar with what he does because he is a new OC, so I'm not sure what he has planned here moving forward and how this offense is going to look. But regardless, I think with Matthias Price, the playbook is pretty simple. You got to give him the Derrick Henry treatment. That was set of plays, like you said, stretch, going eye sometimes. So just let him go to work, right? Let him get outside, let him get those pads low and hit somebody and just see what happens. And so I'm really excited about Matthias Price here. We also got his teammate, Lincoln, as well, who was a top 5 offensive tackle for us. You're going to have to go ahead and see where he was ranked. So go ahead and check out that episode. But, I think getting those two guys were really big deals for Northern Colorado, whose offense, really struggled at times to find an identity. And, getting a guy like Lincoln, who's a great power blocker, run blocker, and getting a guy like Matthias, who was his teammate and thrived behind that, I think that definitely solidifies a little bit of a identity for what they're trying to do, at least in some aspects of the game here moving forward. And so we'll just have to see what happens. But regardless, I'm extremely excited to be able to watch him on Saturdays now, rooting for him, obviously. And hey, Matthias and all the other players who make this top 5 list, you are more than welcome to come onto the show. We'd love to have you for an interview. I think we forgot to say that. So there you go there.
Don't we always? Don't we always?
We do.
But
Kodey, do you want to go ahead and introduce?
Yeah, that's
the
my
next guy.
We love it. So, the next running back, the number 4 running back in the class of 2024 out of far Northeast High School is Russell Patton here, the 5'11", 215-pound back who, just was a surprise on a variety of levels. And I think that the juice that he shows when he just out-cardios an entire defense is wild. There's one play, Simon, you probably know exactly which one I'm talking about here, where he probably runs like 150 total yards. He runs west, and then he cuts back east, and all the while, he's moving slightly north, and then he sticks his foot in the dirt and goes the rest of the way north and scores. Like, just zigzagging across the entire field, and the defense can't keep up, and it's actually hilarious, honestly. Okay, that's a little disrespectful, but rip to that opponent, in short, because Russell is him. He was the engine of this far Northeast squad, and he shows the ability that the acceleration button comes at just the right time. I think that he has really good timing on when he does kick into that next gear. And despite it not being one of his, not one of his premier grades, I should say, his acceleration was still quite solid at an 8.5. And that's actually the second best on this entire list. So that's something that is fun. But I think that the thing that makes Russell really fun to watch is that he does not shy away from contact. He actually craves for it. He starves for it. At a tackle breaking of 8.4 and balance/body control of 8.4, And then, like I said, that 6 foot, 215 pound frame and the strength that he shows, that is his highest grade at a 9.1. Coach V, we talked about this off air, but this is a very power back centric class. And to be Patton, who combines all of that with that acceleration, I mean, that is just one tough matchup to draw for defensive coordinators here. He's also somebody who can chop it down and break it open a little bit and make a little bit of a quick move, and he has a little bit of a pop as well. So his agility / change of direction, I gave an 8.5. And I think that, he aims for where the lanes are open, but he adapts to the play of the field quite well. So while his vision isn't always setting up blocks in the proper place, he still plays and sees the entire field, which I think is important to consider when watching Russell's film here, at least as far as considering his vision here. Coach V, I don't want to take everything here, so I'm going to hear what you have to say about Russell, and let's hear the good and the improve or bad, however you want to put it, positive language here on your side.
Yeah, so when I got to look at his film in the offseason, I knew he was going to be a watch list guy, and he wasn't before, I don't think. But, this year, like going into his senior year, I really felt like he'd be a watch list guy. I was very impressed by his film from his junior year over at Far Northeast. And, behind a pretty good line over there, shout out Matthews, one of their guards, who's a pretty big boy. He did a good job. He really did a good job. But, things I really liked about his game, I mean, gave him a 9 for frame / strength. I mean, 6 foot, 215 might be a little bit stockier, maybe closer to 5'11", 215. Either way, it's a good frame for the D1 level, for the college level for sure. Also gave him an 8.9 for balance and body control. This is a guy that just bounced off of tackles consistently and, was really tough to bring down when he got low. And he got low pretty much like 90% of the time I watched him play. And, he knew that he was going to have to break some tackles. He was like not slippery, but just really hard to tackle because of how low he runs and how well balanced he is. I mean, he is somebody who will fight for every single inch out there on the football field, and he's gonna grit it out. And you kind of just got to be ready to go along with the ride and match his physicality, his intensity. And so that's something I absolutely loved. I mean, like you said, this is a power back class mostly. And he ran with great power and balance, and I loved seeing that. But, that's not to say he wasn't fast either. I also gave him an 8.6 for speed, 8.4 for acceleration there. I mean, he was somebody that, in my opinion, accelerated just a little bit better than Matthias Price into his top-end speed there. And, God, there were a good amount of home run plays that he had this season. And so, not only is he somebody that could run well in between the tackles and, run balanced and gritty, but when he gets outside, he could go ahead and tear off a good chunk of yards for you. And when he's running up that top end speed right at you, that is a tough assignment or a tough ask out of any DB out there, because he's running with so much speed and power. I mean, he's pretty much unstoppable when it's 101 and he's about to score and he's hit that speed. So absolutely love seeing that there. I'm just going to rattle off some other grades here, but I don't want to go too much in depth. Like I said, 8.5 for tackle breaking, good tackle breaker there. 8.2 for agility and change of direction, still pretty solid. I think he has a little bit of wiggle there. Not like, I don't think he's gonna be like an elite or great like player in Space 101. Like, I don't think he's gonna like shake somebody out of their cleats or anything like that, but he has just enough to make the cuts he needs to and run with the strength and balance that he has there. Nothing too crazy, but still a solid amount there. So that's kind of where I'm at there. Now, Kodey, do you mind if I go ahead and talk about some things that I'd like to see him maybe improve on a little bit more here and some of my lower grades for him?
Please do.
So I also gave him some lower grades here, obviously. A 7.7 for footwork. I think there are times where it does get a little bit cluttered there. I think it could be a little bit more precise, and that'll actually take his agility to that next level. I think it's like, I don't know. Like I said, I think his agility is fine, but if he cleans that footwork a little bit more, then he could get a little bit more out of there. And so that's really maximizing, his usage and whatnot by getting that agility up, by working on that footwork there. So I'd love to see him continue to work on that precision. I also gave him a 6 as a receiver. He did not really catch many passes, and I don't think that is like really his game. How I view Russell Patton as far as comparison goes, it feels similar to like maybe a Mark Ingram, right? Or a Carlos Hyde, guys who have a little bit of a wiggle there, are good power runners, run with good balance. But as far as receiving goes, are they going to be the best receiving threat you could put out there, out of the running back spot? Probably not. You could probably find somebody who could do that better. And these guys are more short yardage situations, touchdown, like red zone situation type of guys. And I think that's more his game than anything. I think he's more of a power back than a 3-down back or a receiving back for sure. So there you go there. But it doesn't mean he can't continue to work on his hands and his route running. I think he can develop into that, but gotta work on that footwork, right? Releases, route running, that's important. And, work on those hands as well. I don't think he has horrible hands. I just didn't really get to see him get used a whole ton in crazy situations where he had to catch a whole ton of passes that were contested or over the middle, or, passes that weren't screens and stuff like that. So I think it can be developed. Just didn't really get to see a whole ton of that. So that's kind of where I'm at. Altogether, gave him an overall grade of an 82.2. He's tied with, spoiler alert, the guy that's right after him here, the third best running back in Colorado, at least according to my evaluations. But Kodey, what do you think about my evaluation there and the things that I said he probably needs to work on? But I mean, it's not really part of his game, right?
I mean, we have the exact same things highlighted here between his footwork and his receiving here. And, I will say that receiving is not part of his game, but being a well-rounded back and, more and more of a perfect prospect, and like you said, heading towards that future and whatnot, it's impossible to be a 3-down back without being able to, make some plays in the pass game. And that's where we've seen some great backs really separate themselves, is their ability to pass catch. And, this may come with some controversy as we record this on January 3rd of 2024, but the ability to catch the ball, run routes out of the backfield, or split out wide is what has given Christian McCaffrey arguably the best MVP argument for a running back in a few years. Is what he's been able to do for this San Fran offense, as well as just the versatility that he brings along with a bunch of other athletic playmakers, right? And so receiving, and like I said, growing up watching Christian McCaffrey, I mean, dude was catching mad touchdowns in high school. So, all of this definitely plays a fact into how I view the receiving category for sure. But to also not have that much of volume or depth with it, I mean, he recorded 7 receptions his senior year, and that was it. And I mean, on some of those receptions, he shows fine hands. He watches it all the way in, which is why he can still sit out of 5 here. But not going to score much higher than that. And then I also think that, when it comes to his footwork, I just think that he has to pick him up a little bit. I think that he should hit the tires a little bit. And I think that he would even create more opportunities as well with just a little bit better footwork. And while it's not necessarily so much an area improvement, I will mention that, his power/explosiveness was sitting at an 8, vision 8.3. Combine that with the other categories like the 8.4 in balance and body control and the 8.4 in tackle breaking, and he sits at an 80.7. He was my 4th ranked running back. So stays nice and even from here to here, and it gives us an overall score of 81.45. Coach V, he has offers to Western, McPherson, CSU Pueblo, and Minot State. I'm illiterate, but that doesn't matter because he's getting a chance to go to college to read for me and him. And, I think that this is probably just where a lot of Colorado running backs are going to have to start, is on the D2 level, and they're going to have to prove themselves on that level, NAIA, JUCO, what have you. They have to do that extra round of proving themselves a lot of the time, and I think Russell Patton fits that, but I also think that D2 is a solid enough opportunity where he can make the most of it with just kind of the back he is, because I think that Russell is probably more of, a complimentary, like first and second down back more than a 3-down kind of guy. And I don't know if that third down capability is really going to be expanded or can be like that to take that jump.
First off, I'm pretty sure it's Minot State, I'm pretty sure it's Minot State. Shout out Coach Pham, who's the OC over there, and a friend of the podcast, by the way, where I'm pretty sure he's the OC over there. And I know he loves Russell Patton a whole lot, but that's just all I gotta say there. But yeah, unfortunately, this I don't think this is controversial, but as a former power back myself, I just don't think there's really a world where I don't think there's a world where 80% of power backs go D1. I think most power backs actually will not go D1 at all. Unless you're like Derrick Henry and could also run like a 4.4 or a 4.3, like they're just not going to be respected like that, plain and simple, That's just kind of the state that the running back position is in, receiving, spread, all that, which is great, obviously, but I just don't think any power back, I think most power backs are just not going to go D1 unless they are, they have that speed, right? And unfortunately for Russell, he's not slow by any means. Ran his range in the 100 meter was anywhere from 11.5 to 12.14. That's pretty solid for somebody who's like 6 foot 215, but it just is what it is. It just is what it is, unfortunately. And the days where Marshawn Lynch could go D1, I think nowadays he wouldn't go D1, unfortunately, because that's just kind of where the game is. So for most of these power backs, most of the backs on this list, not just in Colorado, but power backs around the country, I just think that upside to go D1's not there. And it's not because they're not a good running back or anything like that. It's just they don't fit the modern day like offensive scheme, really, where most teams are going. So that's fine. I think he could play on the D2 level. In my opinion, I think he could also play on the D1 level. I don't think there are many linebackers that are going to stop him, when he hits that red zone and you need 5 yards. I just don't think that's accurate at all. But, like I said, this is kind of where the state of football is right now. And I think if he goes to the D2 level, get some college paid for, that's fine. I think he could turn up on the D2 level for sure and have a great career over there. There's some good programs that are wanting him, and I think he could really succeed on that next level. And, wherever he goes, I'm obviously rooting for him. I love his game. I love the way he runs that football, how he is in between the tackles, how, there's always that sliver of a chance he could get outside and hit a home run and break loose. Obviously love that upside there, that big playability, but, it is what it is. And I think he's going to be a good back on the next level regardless. So, yeah. I think most teams need a ball carrier who's pretty tough in between the tackles, and I don't think that's ever going to change. So he should have a spot over there. The running back position, as far as projecting goes and playing time, it's really hard to project. I'm just going to be honest there. So when it comes to players that are not on the UNC roster, which obviously, Kodey, you and I follow pretty closely, we're just not familiar with running back rooms at other colleges. So I don't know when he's going to play. He's probably going to take a red shirt, maybe even more. But who knows? I've seen running backs start sooner than later, right, Kodey?
Yeah, running back being probably the position where durability is tested the most. That's where a lot of opportunities will come in, and I don't think that Russell is immune to those opportunities, and then he's definitely not immune to making the most of those opportunities. So shout out my guy, Russell Patton out of far northeast. Love to see far northeast guys in these conversations and on this list and stuff like that here. So represent, and yeah, shout out Russell, and wherever he goes, he's going to make an impact for sure. So, but our next guy is committed here and was a solid back both in Coach V and I's eyes, and was actually the exact same score for Coach V. A little bit of a spoiler there. And that is Cole Gaddis out of Longmont High School, the Trojan here, coming in for me at an overall grade of 81.1 at a 6 foot, 210 pound frame. Now, something that jumps off the film immediately for me when watching Cole Gaddis is that his body control and ability to stay on his feet just pops off the film, as he just seems so even-keeled, and on top of that, hard to bring down. He understands leverage and is clearly focusing on his pad level when he bounces or shrugs off multiple defenders here. I have that at an 8.8. And, I think that he's got a little wiggle to him as well that helps, accentuate that as well. Now, I will say that something that helps with his balance / body control being kind of a bottom to the top kind of thing is his footwork. I have his footwork graded at an 8.3. He has a couple of, not the most nimble or fast, but he has some smooth-ish spin moves in there that he utilizes more than once that I'd like to talk about and just kind of give him a little bit of a shout out here as well. And then, I think that he sees the field pretty well. I gave his vision an 8.5. And then, his tackle breaking and his frame / strength. That's what really brings it home here at an 8.6 and an 8.8. Those are all the categories that he absolutely beasts at. Coach V, our grades as far as what he does well almost could not be more similar. Literally cannot be more similar at the top end. And then even littered throughout, we're pretty close.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll keep mine pretty short here. Gave him an 8.8 for balance, body control, 8.8 for frame and strength. He's 6 foot 210. That's a pretty good spot to be at for a next level running back. And then an 8.6 for tackle breaking. He's a tackle breaker. If you try to tackle him, he's not going to wiggle you out of your ankles, wiggle you out of your cleats, not your ankles. He's not going to wiggle you out of your cleats, but he's going to put a move on you and get you in a spot where you're not completely able to form tackle, and you kind of got to arm tackle just a little bit, and he's going to break arm tackles all day. And he has that level of IQ, football IQ, where he just knows the angles where, hey, if I get this defender in this position, he's not going to be able to stop me from breaking this tackle, and so absolutely love watching his game here. He's a tackle breaker, runs pretty efficiently. The number of tackles that he breaks, especially when he's near the goal line, absolutely insane. It's like he gets another gear as far as strength goes when he gets in that red zone, and it's like it's his X factor, just like Madden. He turns a little red, and you can't stop him, plain and simple, because he's gonna break the first one, and then hopefully you could get him the second time around. But that's the hope, right? At that point, he's already gaining speed or gaining steam, and he's tough to stop. So absolutely love his game from that aspect, and he's not the slowest guy. I gave him an 8.4 for speed, 8.3 for acceleration. I think he's probably when he really hits his speed, he's probably a mid 4.5 guy, 4.5 40-yard dash guy. That's probably his top end speed when he's really hitting on all pistons and whatnot, and getting going, and he's really fresh. I think 4.5, mid 4.5 is where he's at, but he's probably more so of a 4.6 runner, and it's not bad at all. I think when he's fresh, he'll give you a good burst there, but nothing too insane, I would say. Still pretty solid though. Might as well go over the other grades as well. 8.4 for vision, 8 for footwork, 8.3 for power and explosiveness. I mean, he's a strong guy, but I think a lot of it for him is just his balance and body control that allows him to break a lot of tackles. So there you go there. And then I might as well talk about some of the things I think he could work on / are maybe the weaker parts to his game. But I gave him a 7 for receiving. Not the worst receiver. I mean, I've seen him make a couple contested catches here and there. I mean, you know, he's definitely somebody, when he gets the ball in his hands in any way, he's going to go ahead and get some good yards after the catch. So I love seeing that. I think he could definitely develop a little bit more there. I think for him specifically, obviously you want to work on everything, route running, you know, releases, stuff like that. But, I mean, you're not always going to be able to get the most separation, so I think for him, just working on contested catches would be great. You know, when you run routes, have someone just, like, basically holding you from the start of your route to the end and just learn to finish those catches, right? I think that's just a good way of getting good at being a good contested catcher out there, because he will probably need to catch on the next level. I mean, you're right, Kodey. With the way offenses are going, you got to be able to catch. And so if you're concerned about your separation and whatnot, just be a good, you know, contested catcher. Plain and simple there. And it's going to take some work, though, but I think he could get there for sure. And then I gave him a 7.6 for agility and change of direction. It's the lowest, at least personally, for me out of the top 5 that we've evaluated. Like I said, I mean, all the little moves and stuff he makes, it's not like the craziest, like he's not juking anybody out, really. It's more so that he could set up guys in a position where he could go ahead and break a tackle. So he's never going to just like completely just like cut to the other side or, you know, change directions great and just, you know, take it to the house or anything crazy like that. I think that could definitely be improved. I feel like there are times where, you know, the more tired he gets, the later in games he gets, that hip mobility and flexibility goes down a little bit. And so I would definitely love to see him get more flexible there. And that could honestly probably unlock a whole nother gear in his game. So that would be great. But, I mean, when you could break tackles like he can, you don't necessarily have to be an ankle breaker. So, there you go there. But, Kodey, you know, we have pretty similar grades here. But what do you think about my eval? And, you know, if you want afterwards, you could go ahead and talk about his outlook moving forward since he is committed.
I'll tell you what I think about your eval. I agree. I mean, you know, we were really, really close on this evaluation. Once again, you know, just some of the numbers look a little bit different, but, you know, he has, like I said, a little bit of wiggle, but he doesn't impress me super crazy as far as pulling off, you know, multiple crazy jukes or anything like that. I also think that his speed isn't the best, honestly. I think that, or at least watching him run, he feels like the slowest back on this list. I mean, I still have him at an 8, but it's not where I would really like it to be. And then his receiving, I mean, it's at a 6, but it is the second highest on this list for me. And I think that that's reflected in some of those contested catches, and I just kind of trust him a little bit more out of the backfield than some of these other guys based off of what he's been able to do at Longmont and, you know, just kind of the consistency that's just slightly higher, it feels like, in an offense that I think is a bit more of, you know, that modernish build where he gets chances to do that. So for Cole Gaddis, he is a brainiac here and is committed to Colorado School of Mines, multiple time national runner-up, and, you know, I think that he is a perfect fit here, and I think that he could even pass some guys on the roster who are already there at that running back position. I think that he fits a lot of what they would want to do, but they're not really a school that's known for starting, you know, freshmen right away. So he probably has to wait, but that's probably a good thing too, because I would say that his frame/strength was initially higher for me, but he did run into some injury issues this season. And so I think that just taking that time to get healthy, get used to the workload at this legendary school here for its education, and just taking those steps is going to be monumental for him.
I mean, yeah, half the battle when it comes to playing time on the next level, or really any level as a running back, is availability. So, would obviously love to see him get healthy. I mean, he doesn't have to prepare to take on the full workload. Obviously, I think he's definitely somebody who could get rotated in and contribute, but it never hurts, right? To have that conditioning on that level and be ready at all times. And so, yeah, he's probably going to take a year. I mean, that's most Mines players, right? But I really look forward to him being a contributor to this perennial contender, at least so far, and be a good part of, hopefully, eventually, a national championship. So, we'll see. One could still dream, right? After 2 blowouts, one could still dream?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, I don't have too much more to add, and it doesn't sound like you have too much more to add, so let's keep this thing going and go ahead and talk about our number 2 running back here in the class of 2024, and it is Douglas County's Jake Stonebreaker, the 6'1", 215-pound running back / linebacker, another guy who made a previous top 5 senior list, obviously over at linebacker. Make sure you go ahead and check that out. But, his highlight reel looks great, and some of his best clips are definitely up there with, some of the best players in the state of Colorado, period. I loved watching him play running back, especially this last year, but I'll just go ahead and hop into it. Gave him a 9 for frame and strength. Good frame at 6'1", 215, but I love his power and strength overall. 8.7 in footwork, 8.7 in speed, 8.7 in acceleration. Before Kodey, you hop into this, obviously, I will say this. I could be overrating his speed by a lot. I will say that. But I really love his acceleration. I think that is definitely for real. And, when he hits that top end speed, oh my God. First off, you're not going to be able to tackle him like that. But second, I mean, he could hit some home runs as a running back, take some to the house. And my favorite play from his film is, I think it's the first clip on his highlight reel where it's against Fountain Fort Carson. He takes his thing right, and there's some DB over there, and he's running full speed, and he absolutely just demolishes them at the point of contact, and they're kind of near the sideline, but yet he keeps his balance and run into the end zone. He ran him over on the 10 and took the rest of that momentum into the end zone, basically. And, I think that is just as much a testament to his power as it is to his speed and acceleration, because when you're trying to stop a guy that gains that speed and is running that fast, it is nearly impossible. And so he's a tough guy to stop. In addition, I really like his footwork at linebacker. We raved about, his agility and whatnot, and I think a lot of that is because of his footwork. He has good footwork for a running back. He's definitely somebody who could hit you with a couple of different cuts here and there, a little bit more wiggle to him, but he's somebody that, because of his footwork as well, he will be able to break a couple of tackles, getting guys off balance and whatnot. And speaking of balance, gave him an 8.5 for balance and body control and tackle breaking. I think all of those go hand in hand. That blend of footwork, agility, and strength, balance, and body control really, makes him a tough guy to tackle at the end of the day. He breaks a lot of tackles because he's not only a freak athlete, but, he's definitely somebody who runs with a good pad level. Probably, arguably the best out of anybody on this list. I would say, there's a lot of power backs who run with a good pad level, but it's definitely up there with some of the guys we've evaluated these last couple years. But Kodey, with that being said, what do you think about my evaluation? And what's yours of Jake Stonebreaker here, the standout two-way athlete and arguably the best two-way athlete in the state of Colorado in this class?
Yeah, no, it's been fun watching his film a few times over. And even though it's not broken up by separate positions, but just so explosive and a playmaker. That's what we're all about here. And Stonebreaker fits that bill exactly. Jake, this is your second invite onto the show since you made 2 lists. But don't worry, we can get all the questions on one episode if you take some time to join us. All of that being said, frame/strength at a 9.1. He's just... God, I love how violent Stonebreaker is. I definitely can see why he's been so highly touted by McChesney. And I mean, obviously he works out with McChesney and whatnot, but he just feels like a McChesney player, you know. He's nasty, he's physical, he's violent, he's explosive, and he combines all of these for a great blend of being a solid running back. I mean, power explosiveness, 8.6. Speed, acceleration, 8.6. Tackle breaking, balance body control, 8.4. Frame/strength, like I said, 9.1. I just think that this is what a D1 Power 5 athlete looks like on both sides of the ball. And I remember initially when this offer and announcement was accepted, I wasn't 100% on board, but, you know, I'm going to have to pull a Shaq on that one and be like, sorry, I wasn't quite familiar with your game. Because after watching Stonebreaker here and just see his dominance happen in real time, he's just he's nice, you know. I mean, he's pretty fast against these Colorado boys. He gets to top speed pretty quickly. His ability to hurdle is consistent and proven, which is why his footwork is at an 8.5, being the highest one out of any of the running backs that I analyzed here. And he's able to get back to his base very, very quickly. I will say that, you know, he dribbled somebody off the field with a stiff arm. Coach V, I mean, come on, you got to know which play I'm talking about. He literally dribbled his head. It bounced. That kid looked like he was lost. So, I mean, plays like that always get me hype. I was jumping out of my seat. And, you know, I think that he flexed the ability to shed more tackles. He was more square. He was more over himself. He ran way lower as a senior, I will say, speaking of pad level, than he did his junior year. So I think that all of these are, you know, critical in the spurts to Douglas County's success this season. And while I think, you know, the two-wayedness kind of limited his maximum usage on each side of the ball, I still think that, you know, that Douglas County was significantly better off with him off on the field. Now, as far as things that I would want to see improve, his receiving was not super flexed. I have it at a 5.1. And then his vision, I just think that he kind of loves the sideline or getting to the sideline a little too much, and he kind of beelines for it a few times. Now, I think that his senior year is way better than his junior year in that regard. I think that he was hunting for it a little bit less, but his vision just still doesn't wow me the same way that his overall athleticism and other qualities do. I think that he runs to, you know, where the field is open, but I don't think it always takes into account where his blockers are, the angles that defenders are going to be taking, and stuff like that. I think that his vision has a little bit of room to grow. But, I mean, you add all that up, and that's an 81.6. Coach V, what are your overall thoughts? Speaking a little bit more about those improvements to make, what's your overall grade, and where is Stonebreaker off to? For those who didn't listen to the linebacker episode, which, by the way, go give that a listen.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, agree with everything you said. My lowest grades for him were the same as yours. 7.6, or sorry, not 7.6. 5 for receiving, just not really used as a receiver, which I feel like, I mean, it doesn't matter that much, right? Because he's not going to play this position on the next level. But, you know, if for any reason in the future he does, it'd probably be good to be a better receiver out there or just be used more, but he wasn't used. And so that's why I also gave him a 5 there. And then 8.3 for vision. Yeah, I would agree that he would be looking to hunt for that sideline, that outside lane there. But I also think there are times where he gets a little tunnel vision, and, you know, after he runs over, it's specifically when he's, like, running it up the middle, and he, like, breaks one tackle or runs over one guy, and then he's immediately looking to just, like, hit another guy or something like that. It sounds weird, but just get more contact and just run it up the middle instead of bouncing it outside sometimes when he, you know, can. I think he does that as well, just hunting for violence, which is not a bad thing, you know. He's somebody who loves contact, but it could be a little bit better, you know. He's a very emotional runner, and, you know, as somebody who was also an emotional runner, sometimes you just miss lanes, and it happens, but, you know, you could always improve that. But with that being said, and by the way, my overall grade for him was an 82.4, actually tied with Matthias Price. These grades were really close for me. Tied for second with Matthias Price is what I should say. They're at an 82.4. But with that being said, he is already committed to Kansas State, where he will be playing linebacker. I mean, if you want to hear about his outlook when it comes to linebacker, check out that episode. As a running back, he could always play running back, right? If linebacker doesn't work out, I think he could always play running back, and I think he could be really good at it. And yeah, I mean, you never know, right? Injuries happen. Maybe he's an emergency running back. It could definitely happen, right? But we'll just have to see about that. Regardless, there's going to be a spot for him on the D1 level these next couple years, as long as he stays healthy. I'm just going to knock on wood there. As long as he stays healthy, I think there's always going to be a spot for him, considering how talented he is as a linebacker and a running back, and the attitude he brings to the game as well. Definitely somebody who plays with a chip on his shoulder and, brings toughness to your squad. So, yeah, I mean, don't have too much more to say there. Kodey, what do you think about, I don't know. Do you think there's a chance that he plays running back on the next level? He's probably pretty set at linebacker, though, I would think.
I wish that, I say I wish when I can literally just look it up here. But, I think that it's harder to find a linebacker that does what he does, if that makes sense. And do everything that he does well. And he scored higher. He scored higher as 82.6 overall and 81.82. So he barely scored higher as a linebacker, but I feel like running backs are definitely a position of a bit more abundance. And Stonebreaker being able to do what he does, I think that he's a better linebacker prospect, at least in comparison to like supply and demand. But, I mean, if he does get a handoff on the next level, there's a chance that he makes a highlight out of it. So, it'll just depend on what their other recruits look like and who steps up, who steps down. And I really like Stonebreaker on either side of the ball, especially in, like, K-State's offense as well. I think that, his running style is pretty complementary to it. So, that would be my overall takeaways here. Coach V, you have anything else to add on before I talk about some of these?
Well, he's no Deuce Vaughn for K-State. He's pretty much the exact opposite, but maybe that's what they need. So I get what you mean, though. Liking him in this system, though, for sure. But yeah, no, go ahead and talk about the honorable mentions per usual. I mean, I think this is like I don't think this is ever going to change, but we're always going to evaluate or at least look at seriously around 20-ish backs. But there's a lot of honorable mentions, so why don't you go ahead and, list it off?
Anyways, I think that obviously there were some guys who are really, really close to this list. I'm thinking of, oh no, I'm going to butcher this one. I apologize in advance. But Matru Ramaka here out of Rampart. Masu Ramaka. Gee, you're way too nice. But I know that this is going to come up off the air. But Masu here, he scored over an 80 for both Coach V and I, and he was the only other running back to do that. I think that one thing that stuck out to me, as well as Coach V, was his receiving ability. We got to see him kind of work out of the backfield just a little bit more, and then he's just a very, very good athlete and kind of has that scat kind of running style. So he was fun to watch. Isaiah Jones out of Mesa Ridge was another one that was knocking on that door at 80. Dylan Hearn out of Rye High School here, the leading rusher actually in yards for the state of Colorado here. Chevelle Early, he's somebody who we've kind of had an eye on since his sophomore year when he started to get starts. Dimitri Haralambopoulos here out of Thomas Jefferson. What a stud he is, and he had a lot of things going on, but just a little different evaluating a quarterback who's a bit more of a running back. We've run into that a little bit before, but definitely has some college level upside. Cole Rogers was one of the more pleasant surprises. He kind of takes a little bit of a hit because of, just like his frame and strength, but easily the best pass catching back in this class, and I don't even think it's close. And then Blake Griffin out of Montrose was another guy we took a look at. And then just some other honorable mentions to kind of extend this list here. Gavin Lindahl, one of our all PMC End of the Year award winners out of Pagosa Springs, carrying that squad. Jordan Heron, Cherry Creek seems to produce running backs here. He's a good speed back, just definitely on that undersized kind of build. And then you got Mason Moreno and Josh Snyder out of Columbine. Mason Moreno, Coach V, watching his film, I was kind of on your side here. I kind of like him a little bit more as a next level prospect, especially with that little bit extra of pass catching film that I've seen both from his film off and on the field, as in like with pads and then kind of off season stuff. And Carter Thorpe as well. Coach V, don't know if you want to add anything else on to those guys, a little bit of an extra shout out for any of them, but you also have full permission following that to introduce our numero uno here, who is definitely years in the making as well.
Yeah, before I do that, there are a couple other guys I want to make sure to shout out here as well. Anthony Medina from Regis Jesuit. I know that's somebody, I know the Regis Jesuit fans out there are listening and waiting on his name. He just didn't quite make the cut here. Mason Miller out of Pine Creek. I don't even think he's going to play running back on the next level, but he did not make the cut either. Still though, he had his seasons. Sean Davis out of Ponderosa. He's definitely a smaller back, a lot like Cole Rogers, actually, not as fast though, but a tough back who, is going to be a good, I think, a D2 back, honestly. Orlando Guevara from Denver South as well, the running mate with Chevelle Early. He was in consideration there. Devin Brady from Centauri. I feel this one hurt because he got hurt his junior year, and it just kind of took him a while to get going his senior year. But whatever team picks up Devin Brady, and I don't know what that college interest is looking like. I know he's a good all-around athlete as well in track and basketball, but whoever picks up Devin Brady is getting a guy over there for sure. Sophomore year highlight reel and film and just being a part of that Fast Break Falcons team, so good. One of my favorite players, just a very versatile guy. Just a shame, and that's part of the position, right? Injuries happen, so it is what it is there. And then I want to come back to these Columbine boys because I already know, they're not saying it out loud in public, but I already know how they feel because of who they are. But, Josh Snyder, Mason Moreno, Columbine doesn't win that state championship without him. I think they're both fine running backs, but unfortunately, in the system they're in, they're just not really empowered to do the most that they can. But they're still good running backs. I think if they were in Valor Christian's system, they would probably be recruited a lot more. It's Valor Christian, so in general they would have been recruited a lot more, but it would also be because they would be asked to do a lot more. And honestly, if they were in Valor Christian's backfield, I'm not saying they would win state, but they would have a pretty good chance. They would have done better than what they did with Gabe Sawchuk, and yeah, I'm just not going to get too much more into all that drama there. So there you go. Like I said, just a lot of honorable mentions. But I wanted to make sure I show them some love because I feel like the running back position, or running backs in general, tend to kind of get forgotten sometimes. And so I want to make sure, we highlight some of the good ones here. A lot of great players who, did a lot for their programs and gave a lot of memories for their programs and whatnot, and, sacrificed a lot as well. But this last running back here, the number one running back in the class of 2024 Roosevelt's Xavier Ramirez, the 5'10", 180-pound running back, gave his share of memories to the Roosevelt community and made some really good ones playing for those Rough Riders over there. He is the only one that's not a power back on this list, which I think shows where the game is going. But I'm just going to go ahead and go down the line real quick here with my grades. I don't want to take up all the time, but gave him a 9 for vision, 8.7 for footwork, 8.6s in agility, change of direction, speed, balance, and body control. He's a shifty running back. The more I watch his film, and I've seen this kid live against Northridge, against Lutheran last year in state, this year again against Severance. And then I think I watched that playoff game. Or sorry, you watched that playoff game against Green Mountain. But, I mean, it never changes with X here. You know, he's just a shifty dude who, you know, is tough to tackle. Really shifty. He could pull off a couple moves in a row here and just like break the ankles of so many defenders. And I think something that's really special about him as well, just watching him run laterally, like sideline to sideline or sideways to sideways, I guess is how some people say it. He's fast. You know, some guys, they lose a little bit of speed and they're a little bit stiff when running, you know, laterally like that. But when he's hitting that edge, like, he is really hard to stop. Like, he hits that edge and, you know, he finds that lane upfield and he is gone. You know, and you got to absolutely love that. And even though he is a little bit of a smaller back at 5'10", 180 pounds, he has good balance and body control. You know, he's a tough back. He'll run it up right in between those tackles, and he'll get some good extra yards and whatnot. Despite, like I said, not being the biggest guy, so it's not like he's dragging people, but he'll get some extra yards. You know, he'll fall forward, which is what you could ask for. And obviously, there's always the threat of him breaking one loose just by making a cut here or making a cut there, setting up a block here or there, whether it's Noah Lucero blocking for him, Tucker Peterson blocking for him, or even his quarterback, Bronco Hartson, blocking for him. He's going to set up a block, and then he's going to go hit that hole, and that's something I saw a lot when watching him. I mean, he just has really good vision, almost a sixth sense for where that opening is gonna be, and you know, he finds it consistently even when it's not quite there yet. He'll set it up, and so you gotta love that when it comes to Xavier Ramirez. And he is definitely not the main reason why they won state last year, but a big reason why Roosevelt was able to win their first state championship. But Kodey, what do you think about Xavier Ramirez? I mean, one of the smoothest backs we've ever got to watch here live.
I mean, I think the key difference for X here compared to all these other guys is just how good at everything he is. And, you know, this is the this is the one that is just a little bit different, but we both agree on his smooth athleticism here. Look, agility / change of direction, speed, and vision for me are all at an 8.5 here. I think that he moves very well. And speaking of downhill runner, he creates some serious issues once he picks up that steam, and he just gets more dangerous every 5 yards he's moving with big jump cuts for vast changes in direction. He has the ability to stay or recover balance really well. He's pretty dang quick, but, you know, doesn't hit that top gear as quickly as his acceleration at 8.1, but his top gear is something else. He's got mean stiff arms and good strides, and he makes, you know, lines to the end zone quite easy. He moves around the field, you know, like a joystick. So I think that he does that pretty well. Honestly, kind of just slight live modification here. But continuing on, I think that he will see and cut towards a hole before it's there. And that's the difference from good to great vision at that 8.5. And I think that, you know, sometimes when it comes to, you know, making that last gasp kind of push for the end zone, he does a great job at that. And so that's where I think his balance / body control comes in. I think that, you know, despite him being 5'10", 180, he runs a lot bigger than that, I would say. And so that's why his frame / strength is still at an 8.1. And then, you know, his tackle breaking at an 8.4. Those stiff arms, those shrug off tackles that he makes, and then when he does hit the hole, the burst that he hits it with is why I have his power / explosiveness at an 8.1. I think that when he just sticks his foot in the dirt, man, does he get upfield or what? That's kind of my assessment on Xavier Ramirez. Out of the 81.8 points, though, his two lowest ones, which still, by comparison, are significantly better, is his receiving that I have at a 7.5. You want to talk about catching contested Texas routes. He's somebody who I've actually seen split out and run a curl route as well, you know, on that outside, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things isn't crazy impressive, but it's just nice to have. He's somebody that you could put out there, run an out route. He's got that Texas route. He runs those screens. He runs wheel routes. very rarely, but at least runs them well enough and fast enough to open up opportunities, usually for his teammates underneath, forcing that cover 2 corner who's watching the flats to kind of make a decision. And even if he gets them to turn their hips for a split second, that's all that's needed to open up other opportunities for fellow teammates. So his receiving game is strong. I think that he runs routes pretty well. I think that he catches well. So it's at a 7.5, which, big picture, kind of average, but at least on this scale, grades out very, very well. And then footwork-wise, I have it graded at an 8. I think that sometimes it can get a little out of whack or is just a little undisciplined here. But, he kind of makes up for that with the nice jump cuts and with the ability to change direction pretty fast. And, in addition to that, it also took a little bit of a bump when I saw a slight hurdle as well. And, yeah, I think that between all of that, that's a solid running back that you'd like to have on your squad. I definitely think he's D1 just because of everything that he offers. I do think that he suffers a little bit from that size for sure, and I think that he's somebody who could potentially get an opportunity more as a change of pace back, because he is a running back who I don't think you need to give a ton of carries to get into rhythm, honestly. Any running back is obviously going to benefit from that and kind of figuring out what the defense is doing and just get into their rhythm. But X is somebody who can literally rip off an 80-yard touchdown run on the first play of the game. He can literally do that the first time he touches the football. He has a little bit of return experience. And then, his ability to catch, I think, just makes him a dynamic weapon, a weapon X, if you would, and somebody definitely deserving of this number 1 spot and of our PMC grade of 82.7, and way more deserving than of his offers currently to Black Hill State and Western. But Coach V, I kind of want to, return serve back to you, hear your feedback on kind of my thoughts a little bit here, just because we are just a little bit different and we wanted to flesh these out, especially, when it comes to running backs and our comparisons here. And then I want to hear kind of your take on why his recruiting is where it is, see if you agree with me on that, and what you see for him in the future.
Yeah, no. So I think I already went through most of my grades except for 2, but the last 2 that I have that are his lowest, I gave him a 7.5 for receiving, which is still, it's the highest out of anybody here. And I think this year, shout out Coach Wassinger over there, they really made it an emphasis to put him over at receiver and have him run a couple routes. And I think he could actually, I think there's potential for him to be a really good slot receiver. That's my honest opinion there. I'm just throwing that out there. If you need him to, I think he's a better running back for sure. But, if you wanted to switch him over to receiver, I think he could be really good. There's some upside there for sure. So even though it's his lowest grade, it's still solid at a 7.5. Could be better for sure, And then 7.5, I gave it. The other 7.5 grade I gave to him was for power and explosiveness. As far as explosiveness goes, I think I gave him most of that in acceleration and speed and whatnot. When I'm evaluating power and explosiveness, I'm more so thinking like, all right, just between the tackles, are you going to drag somebody or a couple guys? Probably not. But, he's still tough. He's going to run over somebody. He's going to fall forward. He might break a tackle here or there, but I don't think he's somebody that's going to just drag dudes like 10, 15 yards, right? On the high school level, that is. Not even talking about the next level yet. But still, though, he runs with toughness and grit, which you got to love out of somebody who's 5'10", 180. And honestly, I saw him in person this year, talked to him in person, dapped him up and everything. He feels a lot bigger than 5'10", 180 pounds. It looks a lot bigger than 5'10", 180 pounds for sure. He's a lot bigger than maybe what is listed out there, is what I'm going to say there. He definitely passes the eye test there. And honestly, I don't know why he doesn't have some D1 offers. Maybe it's because Roosevelt's not a 5A program. But I guarantee you, if he was in Valor's system, he would have done pretty much the exact same thing. But, he'd probably, be a 5-star and get to start at Oklahoma right away. And, they will erase his mistakes too over there if he had any. But that, not trying to throw any shots. But I'm just saying, if he was at a bigger program, he would definitely be touted as, I don't know. Like, I think he'd be touted as not a better Christian McCaffrey, but like the next quote unquote Christian McCaffrey for sure. I think he'd definitely be deserving of that. But unfortunately, I mean, D2 is what it is right now. I know scholarships and money talk as it should, for sure. But man, if I was a recruiter over at Northern Colorado, I'm looking at Matthias Price. I'm looking at the rest of the backfield, which wasn't great, by the way, last year anyway, so it's not like you have a lot to work with. And I think adding a guy like Xavier Ramirez would be the perfect lightning to Matthias' thunder over there. And they could be two guys who could take over the Big Sky, in my honest opinion. But, obviously, I mean, you already have the backs you have. And in general, with where the running back position is valued, like, you don't want to put too many on scholarship unless, like, you're a big wing T guy, which UNC is not. We're an actual football program over there. That sounds like a lot. That sounds like that's a little disrespectful, but still, we're a D1 football program over there, and we run a modern offense, like most programs. So, like, that's just what it is. Not an actual program, but like most programs is what I should say. And so they're not going to carry more than a specific number. If anything, they're going to overload on wide receivers. So there's that. And I just, like, if there's a way that we could get him to Greeley, hand-delivered, gift-wrapped almost, because that's what it would be. It'd be a steal and an absolute present. I'd love to find a way to make it happen, because I think he'd be just a great player to have out there. Maybe not as an every down back, but, I think he'd just be a perfect, running partner with Matthias out there someday. And that's just my honest opinion. I think in general, you probably got to pair him with another power back, because, he is a smaller frame, or he has a smaller frame and whatnot in general. So when it comes to speed guys like that, you don't want to give them, like, too many unnecessary carries between the tackles. Isn't that right, Kodey? I mean, what do you think about what I just said there? I know I said a lot and threw a lot of shade out there, but I mean, I believe that X is the real deal, plain and simple.
No, he for sure is the real deal. I got a little hopeful back earlier in the season. I knew that it was a little bit of a pipe dream, but the fact that he was invited out to a game day at CU, I could see them like being like, oh, preferred walk on, and I'm almost begging him to not do that, because while it was a cool story and whatnot to watch some of the paths of PWOs and Offerdahl and stuff like that, it's not going to pan out to money. It's not going to pan out to playing time. I don't think, at least, like, especially with, I mean, Prime is the, like, transfer portal, like, targeter of all time. And so I think that he's got to just get to a place where he can prove himself. He can do it in a variety of ways. And I totally agree that he was overlooked at this Roosevelt program that beat a 5A school 2 years in a row, mind you. And X had insane games. Both years he had insane games. Just tearing apart defenses. And I mean, it took like 9 people in a box to slow down Xavier Ramirez anytime he was, quote-unquote, slowed down. So, Weapon X, he is that guy. He's a Division I running back. He's somebody you could do everything that you want him to do. And, I think that he's somebody who, man, I'm looking at not only an UMCO, but like a CSU right there, or a Wyoming. Like Wyoming, I feel like he'd be such a good fit on a Wyoming squad, just offering all of those versatile, ways to attack opposing defenses. And, really, I feel like he could excel as a Mountain West player as well. So I think that the sky's the limit here. He just needs somebody to call that phone, and, wherever he goes, wherever he answers it, I really hope that he continues to play and, just continues to climb the ladder. And, something that, I don't know if it's quite the same story, of course, but I mean, Roosevelt guys have proven on the next level that they can play. Cooper Walton, actually, shout out, is going to be playing in that FCS title game, for Montana. And I'm looking at, other Big Sky schools. I'm like, hey, man, look at Roosevelt, look at who they are, look at what they've done, and look at the offensive engines of the past couple of years in X and another player that we might talk about on another episode. But, for now, X is him.
Yeah, I'm also going to take a moment here and go ahead and advocate for this Roosevelt program. They've been disrespected by a lot of college programs, and I'm going to be the first one to say it. They've been disrespected, plain and simple. They had Cooper Walton, obviously he got his offers, and, he eventually found a home after CSU did him dirty. I'm just going to make sure that nobody forgot that. But, he found a home, and now he's playing for a national championship, something that CSU never had. They haven't done. And, there's Tucker Peterson, started as a freshman when he came back home and I think played Western. He had 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery or something crazy like that. Roosevelt has players who could play D1, but they've been consistently disrespected despite their tradition of winning and despite having great players. And, this is just another show of disrespect to the 3A level, which is the best level of football here in Colorado, plain and simple. The best coaching staff here, arguably one of the best coaching staffs in Colorado, some of the best developers, and it's proven by how successful their players are. Whether or not you give them their respect, wherever they're at, they're going to succeed and prove other programs wrong. And so Roosevelt has been disrespected, and Xavier Ramirez, he represents Roosevelt football. If anybody's going to ride for the brand, it's Xavier Ramirez here and then boys here in this class. And he's that guy. They're built differently. They're built right over there in Johnstown, over at Roosevelt. And keep sleeping on him is all I'm saying. But they're one of the premier programs in Colorado. We've recognized that. We're going to continue to recognize that and advocate for them. But keep disrespecting them and see what happens. I know they're too, humble and they're great people over there to say that. But keep disrespecting them and see what happens because you're missing out. And you're a bunch of... Pull back on the reins here. But you're a bunch of idiots for not giving them their respect there.
I thought
I didn't cut out
on our stream. I thought you cut out on your stream with that pump fake. Simon, get me with the pump fake part.
I ain't gonna say nothing yet, man. But I'm just saying, man, they've been disrespected. Xavier Ramirez is one of the best running backs we've ever seen. He's had one of the smoothest runs, long touchdown runs we've ever seen. I'll always remember that Northridge touchdown run. And Kodey, you know the one I'm talking about. And I'm sure X remembers the one I'm talking about because I was on the sideline and when he was basically running towards our sideline when he scored that one. And I'll never forget that. But there's a lot of running backs in the state who are in positions to succeed, but don't. And they're overrated in my opinion. But X is not. And he's one of the true guys over here. So that's all I'm saying. Kodey, if you have anything else to add on to that, go for it. But Roosevelt, they keep getting disrespected, but they've built a brand of football that is next level football. That is the future of Colorado, plain and simple.
Yes, sir. Shout out Coach Lane, obviously, and everything he's been able to do with that program. Quarterback after quarterback. Let's also remember that, a former Roosevelt quarterback was the scout team quarterback at CSU that helped prepare CSU to give CU a run for their money on national television as well. So I want to shout out, Broncos' older brother Brig there as well. Turned a one-year starter of Brock into an absolute beast. And God, they really have a lot of Bs at quarterback. But those are some killer Bs, and this is Weapon X here. And all guys who are studs and definitely Division I players, at least FCS guys and guys that could do so much more if given the chance and the looks here for helping keep this program up top. But I don't have anything else to add on here. That is a final rundown of, at number 5, Matthias Price, the UNCO commit out of Fountain Fort Carson. At number 4, Russell Patton, the far northeast running back. Cole Gaddis, the School of Mines commit out of Longmont. Jake Stonebreaker out of Douglas County, heading to K-State. And uncommitted, so get your phones ringing, reach out to him, Xavier Ramirez out of Roosevelt. Coach V, I'll pass it off to you for any lasting notes and to bring us home.
Yeah, man. I mean, like you said, very power back heavy. I think this is the most power backs who have made this list here. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the only other power back who has made a top 5 list, I want to say, was Holden Morgan from a couple years ago. Do you remember that guy? You remember that guy. I know you do. From Highland. But other than that, it's pretty rare that power backs make this list. So it's kind of cool, in my opinion, to see a bunch of guys here.
Yeah, it was way more prominent the very first year. The very first year that we did. The class of 21.
For sure.
When we looked at those guys.
I mean, hey, it is what it is. I mean, I think football is always going to need some powerful runners, some guys who will set the tone, and that's what a lot of these guys will do. Even Xavier Ramirez, who's a little bit smaller, but he's tougher, right? He's going to go get after it. And, I mean, he's a great player, just like a lot of these other guys. And so obviously rooting for them, hoping to have them on the show sometime so we could interview them, get their story, because I feel like a lot of these guys have some great stories to tell, from their time playing high school football. And then, looking forward to what the rest of their story is moving forward. And so with that being said, thank you for listening to us and rocking with us here. If you want to know when more content is going to drop, because I think we only have 2 more Top 5 Senior episodes after this one, make sure you follow us on social media at Playmakers Corner. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitter/X, by the way. TikTok as well. Subscribe to us on YouTube and wherever you can listen to podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well, which you're probably already doing, but go ahead and leave a good rating, as we always appreciate those, and comments, because I know there's a lot of running backs out there and a lot of run first teams out there, so I'm sure there's a lot of opinions, but go ahead and comment. What do you think about this list and some of these great players? But until then, I've been one of your co-hosts, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V.
And I've been Kodey Stauffer. Peace.
Ride for the brand, baby.